Good evening. Welcome to the San Diego Union High School District College and Career Webinar Series. My name is Jamie Cambra. I'm one of our counselor on special assignments for the San Diego School District, and I support our college and career readiness program. And we are excited to have all of you join us tonight to talk about out-of-state and private college admissions. Next slide, Edwin. We'd like to start just by providing a summary of the webinar series that we're hosting this fall. If you missed us last week, we did have a UC admissions session where we had UC San Diego and UC Merced join us. That recording and presentation is linked on our college and career events website. So you can always access the recording if you'd like to learn more about what was shared in that webinar. Tonight, we're excited to introduce our presenters, and I'll do that in a minute, from Boise State and Pitzer College to speak on behalf of private and out-of-state colleges. And then we will have a financial aid night on October 8th. We invite you all to join us. That will be a little bit longer of a workshop, an hour and a half, and we will have representatives from University of San Diego, MiraCosta College, Cal State San Marcos, to speak about financial aid and the process at each of those campuses and the FAFSA overview. And then finally, we will have a Mapping Your Career Journey session on October 22nd and highlight different opportunities for our students to continue their education in a career setting, whether that's a 2-year college, a 4-year college, or a specific career program. So we're excited to share that information with all of you. Next slide, please. So tonight, our webinar is being recorded, so you can view this on your own if you'd like to go back and listen again or share the information with a friend. We also invite you to use the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen to ask any questions during the webinar. We don't have a live interaction, so the best way for you to communicate with us is using the Q&A feature. We will also use the questions that you ask us and compile those at the end of the session to have a live kind of question and answer with our panelists so they can speak openly about the questions you're asking. Next slide. And I'm excited to introduce you all to the presenters tonight. From Boise State University, we have Grace Renfro. She's an admissions counselor, and she is assigned to the San Diego area, so we're happy to have Grace here with us. From Pitzer College, we have Sydney Gerteis. She's also an admissions counselor, and she services different regions that will apply to Pitzer College, so thank you for being with us, Sydney. And then Melissa Hernandez-Sear, she's a counselor at La Costa Canyon High School. And myself, Jamie Cambra, counselor on special assignment of college and career readiness. And Sarah Ekleshin will also be presenting tonight. And she is our TOSA teacher on special assignment of access and outreach and all the great things. So she'll present towards the end. Next slide, please. So I will pass it off to Melissa to start the conversation. Thanks, Melissa.
Good evening. Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our private and out-of-state webinar. And so just to start off, why consider a private and out-of-state institution for your student or yourself? And really, we're looking at new opportunities that may not be available to you within our state of California. Maybe your student is looking at specific majors that are offered at a particular campus that they may be interested or something that that school is known for, as well as the surrounding industry, future employment. So that particular city has a boom in employment in a specific sector that may be interesting your student, and you know that they can follow up with some internships and even post employment opportunities. Class sizes is very important. Teacher student ratios are things to consider. And then as well as a different environment that they may be looking for, leaving our beautiful sunshiny state, but looking also within our state for private schools as well as out of state. Specialized programs, and Sarah can talk a little bit more about those down the road, but also there are schools that have those specialized programs to assist students when necessary, and as well as varied admission practices. So how that school looks at holistic approaches or rolling admissions and what that may mean for your student as an opportunity. Next. So as you can see, in our country, our wonderful country, there are over 5,000 colleges and universities that your student can choose from, and they range from all sizes, small to extremely large campuses. We're lucky tonight that we have Boise State and Pitzer here representing, but there are a myriad of opportunities for your students to choose from across the whole country. Next. And so some considerations to look at when you're looking at in-state versus out-of-state and private versus public is the distance from home. That is very important, making sure that your student can access home during holidays or special events. And then how is that? Is that easily accessible? Do they have in and out for driving access, or even for airports that does come into play? Out-of-state tuition, that does change when you're looking at an in-state versus out-of-state cost of attendance, travel cost, and then admission requirements. So we do prepare our students for A through G requirements here in the state of California, but every state does have their own state requirements. So you want to be sure that your students meeting those particular state requirements that are necessary to be an applicant for that school. The coursework, testing, recommendations, essays, and supplemental essays. And so is that particular school that your student applying to, are they test required, which could be different for our California students? And also considering how that student is applying. Are they using the Common App? Does the school prefer a direct admit approach? So there are so many opportunities that your student can research and look into. Next. And so each site, I'm really proud of our counseling department in the district, and we collaborate across the whole district as a counseling team. But each specific site has their on-campus support that is provided to our students, and our senior class in particular right now is our focus. And so if you look here, this is an example at LCC. LCC counselors are available at the end of the month so that we can have that one-on-one time with your student, and we can collaborate on any questions that they may have for the application process. But we also do one-on-one appointments as well. And our students right now are taking great advantage of that opportunity to meet with us and really go through their application essays and any additional questions that they have. And then also we have the college visit. So the Pitzer and Boise State, for example, and any other colleges, they're coming out to our campuses and they would love to meet with your student and answer any questions that they may have. So if you scan that QR code for LCC, that'll get you to the list of the upcoming college visits that we have and get the opportunity to meet with your local admissions rep. The student does have to sign up and get permission from their teacher just so that they are cleared from not missing any important work. And then we do give them a pass back to class. And every campus has the same process. So really look at that opportunity for your students. And then lastly, we did present in our government and economics classes, our senior lesson. So you can access that presentation for your student. Next. So perfect. I'd love to now pass on the information to Grace Renfro at Boise State. Thank you, Grace.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. So hello, everybody. My name is Grace. You can hit to the next slide if you'd like. I'm an admissions counselor, so that means I get the privilege of working with students and families like yourselves to support you throughout the entire process. I do work specifically with our Southern California students. And I will be coming down next week to La Costa Canyon, so I'll be there on Thursday if anyone wants to come by the Career Center and say hello. As Melissa was mentioning, we do love to visit with our students and just have some good dialogue about what you're thinking for college and figuring out which school is the right fit for you. So I'm a proud Boise State alumni. I graduated in 2022 with my degree in marketing. I absolutely love our university. I was also an out-of-state student, and so I really kind of got that whole out-of-state experience, and it's such a friendly and welcoming place for all students. And a lot of out-of-state students do choose to come. So yeah, moving into the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about Boise. We are right in downtown Boise. So we're located about a 10 to 15 minute walk away from downtown, which makes it really easy to access our really awesome city. It's one of the best places to live in the country. And so as a result, our students have a really high quality of life, which is great. There is 210 or more days of sunshine a year. So I'm originally from Western Washington, so it was a really big win for me to be able to have that sunshine. But for my California friends like yourselves, it's also a really nice ability to have 4 seasons because we do have a very proper winter and fall and all the things, but you're still seeing that sunshine even though it might get a little bit colder up here. We are located in Idaho, and we are the biggest city in Idaho with about 250,000 people. If you expand that to the whole Treasure Valley, we have about 1 million. So a lot of really awesome things happening. Being in the capital city and the largest metropolitan area really opens doors for internships and jobs and all of those things. So living in the city is a really huge benefit of being a Boise State student. So we always like to speak about that before we jump into everything. But if you go to the next slide, we can chat a bit about our academic options. We do have a ton of different options for students to choose from. We are the largest public university in the state of Idaho with about 16,000 undergraduate students. If you expand that to graduate and PhD students, we're closer to about 25,000. But on a day-to-day basis, who you're interacting with the most, it is about 16,000. As Melissa was mentioning, it's important to find schools that have a class size that works with your learning style. Even though we are a large university, we do have an average class size of about 29 students to 1 professor. So really, for a large university, quite a small class size. And we really do that on purpose to try to have as hands-on of a learning experience as possible. We recognize that not all students thrive if they're in a huge lecture hall. So we really try to keep those to a minimum and give as many opportunities as possible for you to really apply what you're learning and get that personalized support from your instructors as well. We do have about an 18-to-1 faculty ratio. So there's definitely plenty of people around to support you and help with any questions that you have academically. We do have over 200 different majors and minors and certificates to choose from, so definitely a lot of options. Once again, it's one of the perks of being at a larger university. There's just so many things that you can explore. So we have our top 10 majors listed here. We do have a lot of interest in the health sciences. We're located next to the 2 largest hospitals in the state, and so we have lots of clinical opportunities for nursing and radiology and kinesiology. We also have a ton of business interest, but I do want to call out that undeclared is our 3rd most popular major. So that is going to be really helpful for students who maybe don't know what they want to study quite yet. We don't require you to apply directly into any programs. And so as a result, you are able to come in as undeclared and really take that time to explore all of your possibilities. And that's really helpful for a lot of our students. Because we don't have any impacted majors, we do have a lot of students changing their majors. Many students change their majors 3 to 4 times. I personally changed my major 4 times, still graduated within 4 years. So it really allows you that flexibility to find what you love and not settle for something that you decided on kind of on a whim when you were 17. You really get that flexibility to choose as you go through school. I know that pre in front of some of our majors might be a little confusing to some folks. For those majors, you're going to come in as pre, whatever it is, pre-business, pre-engineering, and you're going to take a set of gateway coursework, which is essentially 6 to 7 classes that really set the foundation for any major in that discipline. And then from that point, if you pass those gateway classes, you are admitted to the program. We have 2 competitive programs on our campus, which is nursing and radiology. Those 2 are going to be the only 2 that have limited spaces in them, and that's strictly due to clinical spaces in our hospitals. So all schools have different processes for that, so make sure to look into whichever school you're interested in to see if you have to apply to a specific program or if you have the flexibility to come in as undeclared or any major, just because some schools do make admission decisions based on what you select in your admission or in your application. So that is a good thing to keep in mind. You can click on to the next slide. One of my favorite things about Boise State is how many opportunities there are to get involved. We have over 200 clubs. We do have a really robust Greek life community. We have about 27 chapters of fraternities, sororities, and multicultural groups, which is a really great way to get plugged in. In those 200 clubs, there's all sorts of varieties, whether it's athletic clubs or cultural clubs or religious organizations or specifically academic groups. There's so many things to choose from. And so we really encourage wherever you attend university to really find opportunities to get plugged in and connected. That's what makes your experience so much more enjoyable and also really sets you up for success after college. So I really appreciated how Boise State had those opportunities. And so yeah, I really encourage you wherever you go to look into those places to get connected. Next slide, please. We do have an honors college, and so I'll talk a little bit about our general admissions process, but I do want to call out that our honors college does have a different admissions procedure. So they do require some additional essays and a resume, as well as a higher GPA threshold. So if you are a really driven academic student, these are a great opportunity for you to make that public university like Boise State a little bit more like a private school. We have small discussion-oriented classes. They cap those classes at 16 students. So in your honors classes, you'll never have more than 16 folks. It is a community of about 1,100 of our students, so a very large amount of our population is engaged with the Honors College. They have access to additional scholarships and a lot of really great academic and social and service-oriented events, as well as some additional advising that really creates success for our students because they have just an extra person looking out for them, trying to find them connections and opportunities. So if you are a really academically driven student and you're interested in the Honors College, feel free to look into that application process. We do require at least a 3.6 GPA and then an essay and resume in order to start that process. So good thing to keep in mind as you're considering schools that many of them may offer an honors college, and that can be a really great way to kind of add some additional academic rigor and involvement. Next slide, please. So we do have a pretty simple admissions process. So we are one of those schools that has a rolling and direct admission. So what that means is once you send in your application and your transcripts, we'll be able to get you an admission decision in about 3 to 4 weeks. So you'll complete an online application. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. It's really simple. You can complete that $50 application fee as a non-resident. And then once you send in that application, we're only looking for one additional piece of documents, and that's going to be your official or unofficial transcripts. So for admissions purposes, we don't actually need it to be an official transcript, but we will need to receive that by our scholarship deadline in order to consider you for scholarships. So it's a really simple process to just have that application and those transcripts. And then we do look at your cumulative unweighted GPA when making your initial admission decision. If you are denied based on your GPA, we will give you an opportunity to appeal using a holistic review process, which will ask for some additional materials. So know that if you initially aren't automatically accepted, you have a process you can go through. But we do have our GPAs we look for in order to get you an automatic admission decision, starting at a 3.0. So definitely a lot of opportunities for you to get admitted. And so if you're worried about college applications being super stressful, know that they're not all going to be super stressful. For instance, we have a very simple application. Many other schools I'm aware of have a pretty simple application process. So know that it doesn't necessarily have to be complicated, but depending on where you're applying, there's a different process for every school. So definitely a really helpful thing to look for is your college counselors. They're going to be super helpful to support you through your application process because ours is pretty simple. You usually can do it on your own, but your advisor and the admissions counselors from each school is really here to support you through the process. So that is going to be that application process, but I did want to talk briefly about some common questions I tend to get about the applications. If you want to go to the next slide. We do have some pretty common questions that I get, so I just wanted to talk through those. We often are asked if we require ACT or SAT scores. We are a test-blind school. A lot of schools are moving towards being a test-blind university. Just since the pandemic, honestly, it's kind of been a lot of schools have phased out that requirement. So if you have really great test scores, you're still welcome to send them in, but know that we won't be considering them for admissions decisions. But sometimes they can waive English prerequisites or math prerequisites, so it doesn't hurt to send them, but we won't be looking at those specifically for admission. As I already talked about, are any of your programs impacted? None of our majors are impacted. So regardless of what you apply as, you will be admitted on the basis of your GPA. So even if you're applying to one of those competitive programs like nursing or radiology, you will still be admitted to Boise State on our general admission standards. And then after you're admitted and you're taking classes as a student, that's when you'd apply to those programs. So know that regardless of what you pick on your application, we'll still just be looking at that GPA. And then what coursework are we looking for on your transcript? We do just want to make sure you're on track to meet your state's graduation requirements. Depending on what state university you're looking at, sometimes they do have additional requirements. For us, it's just that you meet your state's requirements, but I'm aware of a couple of schools that do have specific language or like arts requirements. So I'd recommend you look into the schools you're interested in just to see if they have any additional things that you need to have, because that can be a helpful thing to know beforehand. But I think at least in your guys' school district, you should be meeting a lot of those just in order to graduate. And then the last question, as I already spoke to, how are you evaluating for admissions and scholarships? We're going to be looking at cumulative unweighted GPAs. So a note on that, we love our students who are taking AP classes and college credits, and they're getting those awesome weighted GPAs. But if you are applying to our school, we are going to make it equal across the board for schools that have access to a ton of AP classes and schools who don't have access to those. And so as a result, we do look at that unweighted GPA. So if you see on your transcript, wherever it says unweighted, that's the GPA we're looking for. So if you're wondering what we're looking at when making a decision, that's what it is. So with that, you can click on to the next slide. These are going to be our non-resident scholarships. So we're really lucky at Boise State to have a pretty awesome selection of non-resident scholarships. But as I mentioned, we're really going to be looking for you to meet our scholarship deadline. So for my California friends, that is going to be December 15th. And so if you are considering Boise State, I would really encourage you to apply before that deadline, because if we have your application and your transcripts by that date, we're able to get you an admission decision. So it's a super simple process to do so. We do have a really awesome WUI scholarship, which is the Western Undergraduate Exchange. The 14 Western states, many of the state universities do offer this scholarship, but they all have different criteria. For us, we're looking for your cumulative unweighted GPA to be above a 3.5. It's a 3.9 for nursing, and then radiology is ineligible. That is a scholarship award of almost $16,000, and it brings your cost of tuition down to about $13,000 a year. So can really make going out of state a lot more affordable. For me as a fellow out-of-state student, Boise State was for sure one of my most affordable out-of-state options. And so it's definitely helpful to consider all the scholarships, because you might see tuition at one rate, but then with the scholarship, it could be a lot more feasible for students. So that's our WUI scholarship. Our summit requires at least a 3.3 GPA. Nursing and radiology are ineligible. All other majors are eligible for this. That's an award of $10,000, brings your cost of tuition down to about $18,000. And then the ridgeline is $5,000 with a 3.1 GPA. Once again, nursing and radiology are ineligible. So with that, those are going to be our scholarships. Those are just our automatic scholarships. So at a lot of schools, you have your automatic scholarships, and then there's going to be those additional scholarships that you have to apply for. For us, you're applying to those scholarships just by applying to the university by the deadline. So keep that in mind. But that is kind of how that scholarship criteria works. Next slide, please. So we do have something called an intent to enroll. So after you're admitted, this is how you'll confirm that you are coming to Boise State, and opens the door for all the next steps. Most schools have something similar to this. So you have kind of step one is get admitted to the school, and then step two is going to be confirm your admission to that school, and then you'll go through whatever that school's next steps are. For us, it's typically going to be housing and orientation for students, and those open up in the spring of your senior year. So I kind of like to think of it as fall is really that time to apply for scholarships, apply for admission, and then in the springtime, you usually are going to start figuring out those next steps. So definitely keep that in mind. If you're already gung-ho about it, you're totally welcome to fill out the intent to enroll now. I had a student do that today. But if you want to wait a bit, you do have a bit of time to kind of figure out all of your options and get those admission decisions. As I said, we give rolling decisions, so you'll know within a month of applying if you've been admitted. However, some schools do have a set date where they release admissions, so it's helpful to kind of get all of your decisions in before you make a final call on where you want to go to school. If you want to go to the next slide, I already talked a bit about financial aid, but just know there's a ton of options. It sounds like you guys have access to a lot of those information, but we do accept the FAFSA. We have another scholarship application you can fill out that's kind of for more specific scholarships. And then I also really encourage students to look into national, local, and private scholarships. These are great ways to have some additional support as well. If you want to move into the student resources slide, we were asked to kind of touch on the ways that you might be supported once you become a student. So I'm really thankful for all the opportunities Boise State has to support our students. We do have a lot of things like career services and health services. We have a veteran services office, lots of services. We have a writing center and some tutoring clinics that will just support you with your classwork. We are asked specifically to talk about the Educational Access Center. So if you want to click to the next slide, this is a really awesome place for students who might have educational or physical disabilities. We have support for you, whether it's accommodations, just emotional and physical support. And then we also have programs like the Aspire program, which is the Autistic Scholars Program for Intervention or Interconnection, Representation, and Empowerment. So this is really to support students with autism as they're going through school, to give them kind of that small group engagement and some additional mentorship. So the Educational Access Center, whatever disability a student may have, we're really hoping to support you as best as possible and make that transition into college, especially if you go out of state, a really seamless one. So it's really cool to kind of see what all they're doing there. But yeah, know that whenever you come to Boise State, you'll be supported, and that's kind of what my role is as an admissions counselor. So all of our roles, really, if you ever meet with an admissions counselor, is really just to support you and your family as you're making this big life decision. So we're here to answer any of those questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. We're really happy to help, especially for many of you who it might be your first time navigating college admissions. If you're a first generation student, we're really here to support all of our friends who are going through that process. So yeah, with that, it was awesome speaking with you guys. I'm really excited to introduce Sydney from Pitzer College. She'll talk a bit about the admissions process for private universities.
Thank you, Grace. That was great. And I always love to learn about other colleges and universities. So really nice to learn about Boise. Similarly, Claremont is also nicknamed the City of Trees. So that's kind of a fun little connection. Pitzer College is in Claremont, California, so not too far away from y'all. Pitzer's part of the Claremont colleges, which I'll get into in a little bit too. But if you've ever heard of Pomona, Pitzer, Scripps, Claremont McKenna, or Harvey Mudd, that is the conglomerate that we're a part of. I'm an admissions counselor for Pitzer specifically. I'm also an alum. Yes, my name is Sydney. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So I went out of state to come to California. So lucky and happy to be in sunny Southern California, like you all. So if you're considering wanting to stay in Southern California, and attend a liberal arts school or a private school, I'm happy to talk about that generally and Pitzer specifically today. Private schools can sort of range from bigger to smaller. I'm going to be talking a little bit on the smaller side today. So like I said, we're a part of what's called a consortium. We're the only one like it in the country. There's a couple other schools that you can take classes at different colleges and universities nearby, but we are the only intentional consortium in the country. So we have 5 undergraduate schools: Pomona, Scripps, Claremont McKenna, Harvey Mudd, and Pitzer. Pomona was sort of our founding father college. They sort of had this idea to bring the liberal arts style of education from the East Coast over to the West Coast. And then when they got some pressure to expand from the California government, they decided to add more liberal arts schools into the system instead of becoming more of a big state school system. They really wanted to stay true to that liberal arts vision, sort of getting a good taste of a bunch of different subjects and fields and seeing how they're interconnected. So that's sort of the gist of a liberal arts college. So like I said, I'm going to be talking about Pitzer specifically today. We are the newest undergraduate college within the Claremont colleges, so founded in the 60s, pretty recently as far as colleges go. And in terms of the history of the consortium, how we came to be, I always like to give a little bit more context to sort of help people understand each of the college's niche. So like I said, Pomona was the first one, sort of general liberal arts. Scripps was founded in the 1920s, so during the women's suffrage movement, as well as the Harlem Renaissance. So they were really inspired to have these English, history, a lot of liberal arts type majors, as well as they are a historically women's college. They've changed today. They actually offer the most majors of any of the Claremont colleges. So you can study anything from that original liberal arts focus into anything in the STEM fields as well. They are still a historically women's college, but they do offer admittance to all students who identify as women and non-binary students as well. Claremont McKenna was founded in 1946, so a lot of money with men coming back from the war with the GI Bill. So they were originally a men's college, sort of aiming to serve men wanting to become more pre-professional type careers, business, finance, this type of thing. So that was their original focus. They too have expanded. They went co-ed, I believe, in the 70s. And you additionally can major in more things than just pre-professional things there too. They do really still have like a strong leadership focus, which is pretty cool though too. Harvey Mudd College was founded during the space race and the Cold War, so they have a huge STEM focus. They're definitely the most specified of all the Claremont colleges. You can only major in STEM focused majors there, and they only have, I think it's 10 majors right now. So like chemistry, biology, etc. And then that brings us to Pitzer. I'll get more into our core values in a little bit, but we were founded during the civil rights movement, the LGBTQ+ movement, the Chicana movement, the environmental movement. So this is what really inspired our core values. We're also founded at a time during a lot of student activism, and you'll really see this come through on our campus as well. That's a little bit about our specific consortium and Pitzer too. But generally, a cool thing to look out for in private schools and liberal arts schools are the core values of the college. So if there are any like core values that you really resonate with, that could be a good way to look into applying to different colleges. For example, students at Pitzer are really passionate about environmental sustainability, social responsibility. You can see them all listed here. Interdisciplinary learning is a very classic liberal arts core value. Intercultural understanding, as well as student engagement. So these are the values that our college holds really close to our hearts. Our students, you'll find, really resonate with at least one or two of these values, if not all of them, of course. So this is like the main theme of our school, sort of what attracts students to looking at Pitzer specifically within the Claremont College Consortium, as well as generally. I can talk about a few ways that these show up on our campus. In terms of environmental sustainability, if you ever have the chance to visit Pitzer's campus, you'll see a lot of native to California plants, a lot of drought-resistant plants. You can see in my background a little bit of the view from our first-year dorms, our pool, as well as the mountains. All of those dorms have at least a Gold LEED certification for sustainability. So this means the water from the showers and the sinks and things are recycled through a gray water process. So all of the plants on campus that do need water will all get watered through that gray water. We have a very farm to fork model at our dining hall. So all the food is grown and harvested within 150 miles and served within 48 hours of harvest at our dining hall, which is really cool. We have a lot of really great vegan, vegetarian options at our dining hall as well. And then in terms of student engagement alongside environmental sustainability, our students are very, very involved and push for a lot more sustainable practice on our campus. We divested from fossil fuels, I believe, in 2002. So basically that means none of our endowment is invested in any fossil fuels. So we really like to practice what we preach. Classic plastic straw ban, things like this. Another really cool fun fact that I love to share with students is that all of the, maybe not all, most of the machines in our gym actually contribute to the energy in the building. So as you run on the treadmill, it actually powers the lights and air conditioning in our gym, which is pretty cool. So even if sustainability isn't necessarily your academic focus, even just by being a student on our campus, you're practicing sustainable action every day, which is really great. In terms of interdisciplinary learning, like I said, very classic liberal arts core value, sort of understanding how does math connect to sociology, connect to art, and sort of doing these projects that like you can do a little bit of everything. A lot of our classes are actually co-taught by professors in different fields, which is pretty cool. For example, we have a class called the History of Surfing that's taught by an Asian American Studies professor and a ceramics professor. And you basically learn about the history of surfing and the cultural significance of it. And then you actually get to construct a surfboard and take it to the beach and surf with it. So I remember learning about that class and just thinking that was so cool and being able to really dive in deep to a subject by learning about it from multiple angles. We also have the option to create your own major, which is really, really great. About 5% of our students in every class will do this. So this is like if you're really interested in a specific niche, you really want to do a deep dive into it, One of my best friends did his own major in food and agriculture studies. So he studied all of the like cultural significance of food, a lot of like urban farming, things like this. So he really got to just study what he was passionate about. And that's something we really want our students to feel encouraged to do. So definitely reach out to me if you have any questions about what creating your own major would look like or anything like this. It's a really cool option that we have for students. Also, I'm sitting outside, so if you hear the birds and it's a little loud, I'm sorry. In terms of intercultural understanding, very easy way to talk about this is our study abroad programs. Super common for our students to study abroad. We have 8 direct run programs and about 60 indirect run programs. All of the direct run programs are all very Pitzer specific. So like Pitzer professors, you'll be with a cohort of Pitzer and Claremont College's students in another country. These will all have homestay components as well as internship components. So you're really getting involved in the culture that you're staying in while you're there. I was lucky enough to do our Costa Rica program when I was a student, and I had a really great internship at a public clinic in San Jose, Costa Rica. So that was wonderful. And a lot of other more traditional study abroad options, like staying in the dorms at another college or university, taking classes there and getting credits transferred back over is always an option. We actually also have a really cool ability for our students to study abroad up to 3 times. So you can do a whole year and a half abroad if you choose to do so. Most students will just do 1 semester. So that's, you don't have to do all 3 if you don't want, but that's another really cool option. In terms of intercultural understanding on campus, we also have a lot of really great affinity groups. A lot of our classes are really oriented around intercultural understanding. We have a graduation requirement centered around it as well. In terms of the affinity groups, let me back up a second. We have about 15 affinity groups on campus. They all have like physical locations on campus for students to meet and hang out and build community. I think I'll touch on this again on another slide. In terms of social responsibility, we have a million different ways that students can be socially responsible on our campus. We have a social responsibility theory and praxis graduation requirement. Essentially, students used to have a requirement that you have to volunteer for 40 hours to graduate, but students were feeling like it was kind of unguided and they weren't really getting to know the communities they were going into. So students pushed to have this changed to be taking a class about a community and then getting an internship with that community. So that's a part of our graduation requirements. So you can really get involved in the Inland Empire in the Los Angeles area through an internship, which is really great. Oftentimes students will ask questions about internships and things, and I really loved that it was sort of already embedded into a lot of the class offerings that we have at Pitzer and the Claremont colleges in general. In terms of student engagement, another huge part of our campus, we have a shared governance model. So basically what this means is every committee that's deciding anything on our campus, from the aesthetics of the campus, what cactus gets what planted where, to which teachers are being tenured, things like this. Students are always sitting on those committees. So along with board members, trustees, faculty, all this good stuff, students always have their voice being heard in everything that's happening on campus. And you can really feel this too. Our students are very politically active, whether that be in national politics or just on campus politics as well. So this is sort of a taste of what Pitzer looks like. We can go to the next slide. Awesome. So I didn't make a bullet point about this on this slide, which I wish that I did, but I want to talk a little bit more about how Pitzer fits into the Claremont colleges. So like I was explaining before, we have these 5 undergraduate schools all right next to each other. Pitzer is just one of them. So if you are a student at Pitzer College, you are more than welcome to take classes at the other 4 institutions that we have right next to us. We're all within 1 square mile of each other, so super easy walk. The longest walk you'll ever do is from like the very corner of one to the very corner of another, and that'll take about like 25 minutes. So in addition to all the class offerings that we have at Pitzer, you can have all the class offerings at the other schools as well. Registration works pretty similarly for all the students, all on the same portal. And this opens up a lot of the opportunities for like socializing events, things like this as well, in addition to just academics. So similarly, on this slide, I talk about our academic accommodations, writing center, mental health counseling, all this stuff. This is all going to be a lot of shared resources across the Claremont colleges. So especially for affinity spaces, community engagement, mental health counseling, chaplains, all this good stuff will be 5C wide, so you can meet students with similar identities to you across the campuses. This is really nice because Pitzer itself is very, very small. We're only about 1,100 students, but across the Claremont colleges, we have around 6,000. So it makes your community a little bit bigger. But then if you like having that more small, tight-knit community, you can have that too with just your Pitzer peers. So that's what I really like about it. It's kind of like a loophole. I remember when I was looking at colleges, my parents were always like, you can make like a big school feel small once you find your community, but it's really hard to make a small school feel big. I feel like the Claremont colleges are sort of the perfect loophole for this. So let me know if you have any questions about that. But yeah, as you can see here, some of the resources that we have on campus, similarly to Boise, Grace was talking about, academic, physical, and mental accommodations are always available for students. And this will apply for once you get them at Pitzer, they'll apply to the classes that you take at the other Claremont colleges as well, which is really nice. But yeah, just wanted to highlight these. So thank you for this slide. Can I have the next one? Awesome. So here's some application details. You'll hear a lot in the college process, the term holistic reading process. This is especially a term that's used a lot when talking about liberal arts colleges. So basically what this means is we don't look at applications and sort of just look at the GPA and then decide your admittance based on that, which sounds a little bit more similar to Boise State Grace's process. The essays in our process are going to be super, super important. Your extracurriculars are going to be super, super important. So when we say holistic, it basically means we are considering your entire application in your admittance or not. So for your supplemental essay, your Common App essay, we really want to learn about who you are, especially in the supplemental essay. We want to hear if you relate to our core values, how they show up in your life. For these small private liberal arts schools and private colleges, we really want to see how you see yourself fitting into our community, what you see yourself adding to our community, all these good things. So really understanding why you want to come here is always going to be a really important part of your application. Your transcript, of course, will be important as well. This holistic reading process, we don't exactly have like a minimum GPA, et cetera, et cetera. It is going to have to do, well, what's your GPA look like in addition to your essays, these kinds of things. We do have like averages and like mean scores, all of that is available online for you to look at. And I'm happy to talk more about all that statistic stuff if you'd like me to as well. But some other requirements that we have in our application is the academic recommendation. You can always submit more than one if you want to, in addition to a counselor recommendation if you'd like. The school report, so I think Grace was also touching on this. We're always going to take into the context of your high school. So if your high school doesn't offer any APs, we'll never hold that against you or anything like that. We always want to see the rigor you're taking and how you're doing in comparison to your landscape, instead of generally like all of California, all of the US, all of our applicant pool in general. We are test free, so we don't take any SAT or ACT scores. Even if you submit them, we can't see them. And then, like I said, here's a couple optional pieces for the application, like counselor recommendation. We do offer optional interviews. I definitely recommend if you are really interested in Pitzer or any liberal arts school, any private college, interviewing is a really great way to let the school know a little bit more about you off paper. You should definitely look if the school requires it or it's optional or recommended. Each school is going to have sort of a different practice with this. For us, it's completely optional, but if you are super interested in Pitzer, if you definitely want to apply, if you definitely could see yourself at Pitzer, it's definitely something I would recommend. It's also just sort of a fun way to get to know the school a little bit better. All of our interviews are with seniors at Pitzer, so you can get to know them, ask them questions about what it's like to be a student on campus, all that good stuff too. You can always submit a resume or portfolio to us. If you're an artist or a musician, we always love to see your work. It's always sort of like a fun little break from reading if I get to click out of it and listen to your like Spotify link or look at some of the paintings you've done. That's always just fun for me as a reader, but also no pressure. And then in terms of our application rounds, we do offer early decision, 2 rounds of it, and regular decision. If you are not familiar already with early decision, it is a binding agreement. So this is only going to be your top choice school. If admitted, you will attend. I definitely recommend applying in the regular decision round if you are wanting to consider financial aid packages. If you apply in the early decision round and you are wanting to consider financial aid, you just won't be able to compare the different packages you get from different schools. So that is just sort of a caveat of it. I'm happy to talk more about that if you'd like. And I'm going to talk more about financial aid if we go to the next slide. Awesome. So we are a need-aware school and we meet 100% of demonstrated need. So basically what this means is once you submit your FAFSA, which is the federal form, and the CSS profile, which is the institution-specific form, we'll get a gauge on how much your family contribution is. And then from there, Pitzer will meet the rest of your need, which is really great. Sometimes there's sort of a perception that like going to a state school or a public university is more affordable than a liberal arts school, which is often true. With that sticker price tag seems a lot higher, but we offer really great financial aid because we do meet 100%. And we also, the financial aid covers things like your books, your housing, your food, all that good stuff sort of gets wrapped up into it. So it can be a really affordable option. And please know that our financial aid team is always happy to chat with families if you have any questions about your specific family situation or anything like this. You can also use the net price calculator if you want sort of like a gauge on what your price would be if you were applying to Pitzer. This being said, we do offer merit, but I want to emphasize that most of our need is need-based, so our merit scholarships are much lower. You will be automatically considered for merit when you apply. But like I said, these are a lot smaller scholarships that are just sort of like go to a few students. So most of that aid is going to be need-based for families that need it. Like I said, always contact the financial aid team. They are super sweet and helpful. Also, I love how much Grace was highlighting that we should be a resource for you. I really want to emphasize that too. If there's any school that you're interested in, whether it's Boise or whether it's Pitzer, please reach out to the admissions counselor for your area. We are happy to talk with you about any questions that you have, and often it can only help. Another really good thing to look at for schools is if they measure demonstrated interest. Pitzer definitely measures this, so good to know. Emailing your reps can only help your application. It's like a little note in your file that tells us that maybe you're interested in the school. So demonstrated interest is always a good thing to look into. Things like touring the school, interviewing with the school, all these things can only help your application. So always good. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. And like I said, please email me anytime if anything else pops up. Yeah, thank you so much. And next, I believe, will be Sarah talking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sydney. I really appreciate all the information, and I'm sure our families do as well. So I'm going to be talking a little about levels of support for college students with a documented disability, and these differ significantly from high school, focusing on equal access rather than success. Unlike the highly structured environment of your K through 12, college is guided by the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which requires colleges to provide reasonable accommodations to level the playing field. The big difference is that the student must self-identify and provide documentation of the disability to the college's Disability Services Office. Accommodations are determined on a case-by-case basis and can include academic adjustments such as extended time, a distraction-reduced testing environment, note-taking services, and accessible course materials. They often provide assistive technology such as screen readers and other specialized software or equipment, as well as physical accommodations like accessible housing, ramps, and elevators. Some colleges might also offer more intensive, fee-based comprehensive support programs that go beyond the standard ADA mandated accommodations, providing services like one-on-one academic coaching and specialized tutoring. While the level of support is often less than in high school, the goal is to empower students to advocate for their own needs as they navigate their college experience. As Grace mentioned earlier, the Aspire program at Boise State is one of those services. The QR code above links to a spreadsheet that provides information on colleges and universities focusing on their accessibility services as well as if they require the ACT or SAT. While all colleges and universities are required to be ADA compliant, there are many that offer coordinated services, structured programs, and even specific colleges dedicated to students with learning disabilities. On that QR code above, some examples of colleges and universities with structured programs, like the Boise State Aspire program, include the Arizona State University GATE program, Beacon College, CSU Long Beach, Marist College, the University of Arizona Salt Center, University of Connecticut. All of these are opportunities for students to get additional support. That is available on our website as well. You can scan the QR code, and we appreciate any kind of questions that you may have. So going to the next slide, Edwin, thank you. We want to say thank you so much to Grace, Sydney, Melissa, Jamie for coming out today and providing this insightful information to our families. So thank you again so much. We are now going to open it up to the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please utilize the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and we will be answering those. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks to our presenters. Great information. And before we go into questions, I want to highlight the difference between the two campuses that you just learned about. Boise State, I really appreciate Grace's perspective on the pretty direct admission opportunities. And I'm also glad that we had Pitzer here to discuss the holistic review and that type of application cycle, because I think it's important to note when she referenced demonstrated interest and what that looks like. Like she said, sending emails to admissions reps, attending college fairs, attending college visits at your high school, showing the college campus that you're invested in interest in learning about the campus and finding out if it's a fit for you. So that's something that is really valued on the college side when they're reviewing applications. They want to ensure that students who they admit will be happy and healthy and successful on their campus. So that's an important piece to consider. And I will also say every campus has a mission statement or a value statement, and it's really helpful for students, even though they may sound fancy and fun, to really read those and understand if those align with what the student is looking for in their college experience. Because if you can tie that together and really show the admissions offices that your intentions are aligned with theirs and similar in that space, that may go far for you as well. And I don't want to speak for the admissions reps, but I know just in the years of working with students, that does seem to help at least identify campuses that are a good fit for our kids. So that's my soapbox. And I do know we have a few questions that came through. So the first one, Melissa, I was going to actually ask you if you want to speak about on behalf from a high school counselor side. Grace spoke about the one document that Boise State does need in addition to the application is the high school transcript. And she said it can either be unofficial or official. Do you want to let families and students know how they can request an official transcript or unofficial from their high school counselor to be sent to a campus?
Absolutely. So every school is different, and it does matter in the method in which you apply to the school. So for example, if you're applying direct admit to Boise State, then through our district, we would use parchment.com, and that request goes directly to our registrar, who would send an official transcript directly to Boise on your student's behalf. If your student is applying through Common App and they have multiple schools that they're applying to through Common App, then your school counselor, your college counselor on your campus that works directly with your student, that would require a FERPA that would be needed to be exchanged between the student. Parent signs off on it if the student's not an 18-year-old student, and the counselor. Then we are able to upload an official transcript through Common App and send that directly to all the schools on the students list. And it's really nice that way because we can send off multiple official transcripts at one time. And there are schools that don't require official transcripts, and that would be noted in the application process. So if that is the case, then oftentimes either we can send one as a school counselor to the school through an email that is provided to us, as long as we have a FERPA on file, or if you have an unofficial transcript that you have on file for your own student, the student has one, like at LCC, all of our students received an unofficial transcript at the beginning of the month, that can be uploaded and sent to the school directly. So you really want to make sure that you know the school's policy and how they are wanting to receive that information. In addition to official transcripts that are sent to the schools, there are many campuses that still require you to fill out an academic review at hand entering their courses that they took. And usually it's because the campus wants to make sure that the self-reported grades do match the transcript that is received.
Perfect. Thank you. And I will note, like Melissa said, the UC and Cal State system does not require an official transcript to be sent separately until the student is admitted and actually attends that campus. So they're all self-reported. So again, be careful as you're reviewing the schools you're applying to and ensure that you understand the different application processes. And if you have questions about that, you can always ask your high school counselor. A question for both Sydney and Grace related to test scores. I know you both referenced. Sydney, you talked about Pitzer being test free. Grace, I believe you said test optional. Did you use the word optional or free? I forget. Could you both speak to, maybe we can start with Sydney, if you could also reference the other Claremont colleges, and I know you may not know their exact policies, but just reference if they're test optional and how our students should investigate that information.
Yeah, I have a couple things to say on that note. So it is important to know that the whole Claremont College system, each of the colleges has separate admissions offices. So when you are interested in one of them, you are applying directly to that school. This application for Pitzer and Scripps would be a different application, separate admissions offices. We won't know if you apply to more than one of the Claremont colleges or anything like that. It's all completely separate. So we all have different requirements and procedures and all that good stuff, including our test optional policies. So Pitzer test free, the rest of the Claremont colleges are test optional. Another thing to note with schools that are test optional is the reported score of the average for that school is going to be a little bit higher because the students choosing to submit their scores are the ones that are scoring a little bit higher. So just know that if you see a test optional school that has a really high average score, just know that it's a little bit skewed because of that.
Thanks, Sydney. Yeah, so I said test optional. For admissions purposes, I would say we're more similar to test free. We do not evaluate tests whatsoever for admissions purposes. With that being said, I mentioned the Honors College, and so if you're applying to the Honors College, that's a point in which the test would be optional. Once again, if you don't submit it, there's absolutely no harm to the student. But if you have a really solid test score and you feel great about it, you should absolutely send that in, because the Honors College can consider that with the wealth of all the other holistic things they're looking at. It can just be another factor for you as you're applying to the Honors College. I also mentioned sending in your test scores because I personally was able to actually waive my English 101 and 102 classes through SAT scores. So we do have things like that. So you're always welcome to send your scores. Know that we will not consider them for admissions purposes, and it can only help you as far as the Honors College goes and as far as getting some additional credit goes. So those are the two instances in which we would look for tests.
Thank you both. I know there's a lot of students that are in that decision-making mode of if they should try to take an SAT or ACT again, now that there's that final opportunity. And this is where it's really important to look at the colleges you're applying to and identify if they do require tests, if they're test optional or test free, and the differences between those terms. So again, test free, they are not reviewed at all. That's what Pitzer shared. And then in test optional, that can mean a lot of different things. So as Grace shared, it's they're not reviewed in admissions, but in some cases, and every school is different, they may be reviewed for scholarship opportunities or for course placement opportunities. So just consider all of the things and weigh your options if it's worth it for you to be retesting or testing for the first time, or if you maybe don't need to. And I will again reference the UCs and Cal States they are test blind as well. They're test free. They do not look at test scores. And some campuses said they will look at them once the student's admitted for placement. So for admissions, they are not reviewed at all. Okay, so that's a good update on the testing. And I think we can kind of close it up with, again, the opportunities to talk directly to our admissions counselors, reps, if they are coming to your high school, please visit them. All the college visits are posted on your high school counseling website. You can also go into your counseling office to talk about when a college may come or not come. And if they're not on the list, you can always email the rep that we have the contact info for. And just, it's really recommended you ask a question that you're not able to find on the website. So if it's a basic question, do you offer psychology? That's something you could probably find on the college website. So you want to really dig a little deeper, find a question that will allow you to engage with the admissions representative and for them to understand if you're thoroughly interested or not and start that conversation. Is there anything else that anyone would else like to add about the conversation today? Grace or Sydney or Melissa or Sarah? Great. Well, we thank you all for joining us. Again, this will be posted on the SDUHSD College and Career Events website. We will also send an email to all of our juniors and seniors with a copy of the recording and the presentation so you can view on your own time. And a very, very special thank you to Grace and Sydney and Melissa and Sarah for sharing your expertise tonight and spending time with us, and for all of you for joining us. So have a good night and thanks again. Take care.
Thank you all.